Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy History Channel. Tonight, we travel into the world of life as an ancient Egyptian. This was a civilization shaped by a river that could decide the fate of a household. It was a place where ordinary people worked with skill, patience, and faith, in a universe that felt close to them every day. Ancient Egypt was not only the story of pharaohs, it was also the story of families who baked bread before sunrise. It was the story of workers who left messages that still sound human after thousands of years. It was the story of doctors who studied the body with remarkable care. The world they built was practical. It was sacred. It was far more complex than it first appears. Tonight, we will step beyond the monuments and look at the daily lives behind them. We will explore how people lived, worked, believed, healed, celebrated, and prepared for eternity. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, all you need to do is settle in. Let your shoulders soften. Allow your breathing to slow. And as the day begins to fade, join me as we explore this remarkable ancient world together. Let's begin. Most ancient Egyptians never saw the inside of a pyramid. For many people today, pyramids are the first thing that comes to mind when Egypt is mentioned. Yet for the farmer, the potter, the brewer, or the child growing up beside the Nile, those giant stone forms were not everyday spaces. They were sealed royal monuments, built to guard a king's body and support his journey beyond death. Ordinary people might see them from a distance rising above the desert edge, but they did not wander through their chambers. The most famous pyramids were already ancient by the time many later Egyptians were born. To them, these structures belonged to a past that was almost legendary. Daily life happened elsewhere, in mud brick houses, busy fields, crowded workshops, and local temples. This matters because it changes the way we imagine Egypt. The civilization was carried by millions of people whose world was practical, demanding, and deeply human. The Nile decided whether families feasted or faced hunger. Every year, life in Egypt depended on a natural event that no king could fully control. The river rose, spread across the fields, and left behind dark, rich silt that made farming possible. If the flood was generous, crops grew well, and granaries filled. If it was too low, the soil stayed dry, and hunger could follow. If it grows too high, homes and boundaries could be damaged. This made the river feel almost alive in the minds of the people who depended on it. Officials watched its level closely because the height of the flood affected taxes, planning, and survival. Farmers organized their work around its rhythm, waiting for the land to receive water before planting could begin. The surrounding desert made this dependence even sharper. Beyond the green strip of cultivation, the landscape became harsh and unforgiving. Egypt's abundance was never guaranteed. It arrived through the river, year after year, like a promise that had to be renewed. Ordinary workers built royal tombs without being enslaved prisoners. The image of vast monuments built only by chains and whips is far too simple. Many of the people who built tombs and temples were skilled laborers, craftspeople, and organized work crews. They received food, clothing, oil, and other supplies as payment. Some lived in planned settlements close to the places where they worked. Their lives were not easy, and the labor could be exhausting, but they were not all enslaved prisoners dragged from their homes. Evidence from workers' villages reveals names, job roles, family lives, complaints, and even absences from work. These records make the builders feel astonishingly close to us. They worried about supplies. They took time off for illness. They depended on managers, rations, and schedules. Royal projects required enormous organization, not just raw force. Stone had to be cut, moved, shaped, painted, and fitted with care. Behind every grand burial place was a community of workers whose expertise made eternity look possible. Bread and beer were daily fuel for nearly every household. A typical Egyptian meal was built around two staples that carried people through long days of work. Bread came in many shapes, from simple round loaves to more carefully prepared forms for wealthier tables. It was made from grain that had to be harvested, ground, mixed, and baked with constant effort. Beer was just as central. It was not exactly like the clear drink many people know today. It could be thick, nourishing, and cloudy, with grain still present in the mixture. Workers received it as part of their rations, which shows how important it was to basic survival. These foods connected the home, the field, and the state. Grain filled storage rooms, supported labor, and helped pay wages. A loaf was never just a loaf. It represented water, soil, harvest, grinding stones, ovens, and the hands that prepared it. In a world where calories mattered deeply, bread and beer kept Egypt moving from morning until night. Egyptians believed a person had several souls after death. To many Egyptians, a human being was not made from a body and a single spirit. Identity was more layered than that. The Ka was a vital life force that needed offerings after death. The Ba could move between the tomb and the world beyond, often shown as a bird with a human head. The name had to be remembered because being forgotten was a kind of second death. The shadow also carried meaning, and the heart held moral importance. This view made burial practices far more than decoration. The body, the tomb, the inscriptions, and the offerings all helped preserve the person as a complete being. Death was not imagined as a sudden disappearance. It was a dangerous transition that required preparation, ritual, and memory. This is why tomb walls could be filled with scenes of food, work, and family. They were not merely pictures. They helped keep a person's existence whole. Doctors treated wounds with honey thousands of years ago. Long before modern laboratories explained why it worked, Egyptian healers used honey in medical care. Its thickness helped cover damaged tissue, and its natural properties could slow the growth of harmful organisms. This made it especially useful for wounds in a hot environment where infection was a serious danger. Medical papyri show a world where observation and belief often worked side by side. A healer might clean an injury, apply a practical substance, and also speak protective words. That combination can feel strange now, but it reflects a society trying to use every available tool. Some treatments were symbolic or mistaken. Others were impressively sensible. Honey belongs to the second group. It reminds us that ancient medicine was not simply superstition. Egyptian practitioners watched bodies closely. They noticed swelling, bleeding, pain, and healing. They built knowledge through experience, and some of their choices were strong enough to make sense, even after thousands of years. Cats were loved because they protected homes from danger. In an Egyptian household, a cat could be much more than a charming companion. Stored grain attracted mice and rats, and those pests threatened food supplies that families worked hard to produce. Snakes and scorpions could also enter living spaces, especially in a warm climate where homes were often close to fields and storage areas. Cats were quick, alert, and skilled hunters, so their presence had practical value. Over time, that usefulness blended with affection and religious meaning. People noticed their grace, their independence, and their protective behavior. They became linked with powerful ideas of motherhood, safety, and divine guardianship. Some were buried with care, which shows that the bond could be emotional as well as useful. This relationship grew from daily life, not just temple belief. A cat, moving through a home, was a small guardian in a dangerous world. It protected food, reduced fear, and earned a place in the Egyptian imagination. Children learned with broken pottery instead of expensive papyrus. Papyrus was valuable, so students often practiced writing on cheaper surfaces. Broken pottery pieces, known as ostraka, became useful practice materials. A shard that might seem like rubbish to us could become a school exercise, a rough notebook, or a place to copy a lesson. Young learners repeated signs, phrases, and model texts until their hands became steady. This training was difficult because writing opened the door to a respected career. A skilled scribe could work for temples, estates, or the government, and that brought status beyond ordinary field labor. The path was demanding. Lessons could be strict, and mistakes were corrected firmly. Yet these practice pieces are precious today because they show education at its most human level. They preserve awkward attempts, repeated lines, and the slow work of learning. Through them, we can almost hear a teacher's instruction and feel a child trying to master a system that could change their future. Women could own property and take cases to court. Ancient Egyptian women had legal rights that surprise many people. They could buy and sell property, make contracts, inherit wealth, and bring disputes before officials. Marriage did not erase a woman's legal identity in the way it did in some later societies. Documents show women acting in their own names, managing assets, and negotiating family matters. This does not mean life was equal in every way. Men still dominated many public offices, and social expectations shaped what women were encouraged to do. Even so, the legal position of Egyptian women was unusually strong compared with many ancient cultures. A widow could defend her interests. A wife could be involved in agreements. A daughter could receive inheritance. These rights mattered because property was power. It meant a woman might have security if a marriage ended or a relative died. Behind the grand stories of queens, ordinary women also left traces of agency in everyday records. Mummification was meant to preserve identity for eternity. The goal was not simply to stop a body from decaying. It was to protect the person's future existence. Egyptians believed the physical form remained important after death, so careful preservation helped the deceased remain recognizable and complete. The process could involve removing internal organs, drying the body with natron, wrapping it in linen, and placing protective amulets among the layers. Wealth determined how elaborate the treatment could be. The richest burials received the most careful attention, while poorer people had simpler arrangements. Yet the underlying hope was widely understood. To continue beyond death, the person needed stability, memory, and ritual support. The face, the name, and the body all mattered. This gives mummification its emotional force. It was not a fascination with death for its own sake. It was an attempt to defend life against disappearance. Every layer of linen was part of a larger human wish to remain known, cared for, and present. Village life followed the flood, planting, and harvest seasons. Time in rural Egypt was not organized around weekends or modern calendars. It was shaped by the agricultural cycle. When the inundation covered the fields, farming paused and other forms of labor became possible. People might work on state projects, repair tools, tend animals, or prepare for the next stage of the year. As the water withdrew, farmers planted crops in the moist, fertile ground. Later came the harvest, when families and workers gathered grain that would feed households and support the government. This rhythm gave structure to ordinary life. It shaped food supply, taxation, religious gratitude, and community effort. Every season carried its own pressures. A good harvest could bring relief. A poor one could create anxiety that reached from the smallest household to the highest officials. The pattern was reliable enough to build a civilization around, yet uncertain enough to keep everyone watchful. In the countryside, history moved with the water. Farmers measured time by watching the Nile rise and fall. For an Egyptian farmer, the river was a kind of calendar written in water. Its changes signaled when fields could be worked, when seeds should be prepared, and when labor had to shift from one task to another. Measuring the flood was not only a practical habit. It became part of administration and planning. Devices called nilometers helped track the height of the water in certain places. Their readings could influence expectations for the season ahead. A strong rise suggested abundance, while a weak one could warn of hardship. This meant that time was not just counted by days. It was felt through mud, moisture, and the changing edge of the riverbank. The farmer's year began with attention. People watched the water because the water carried news. Before letters arrived, before official announcements were made, the Nile itself gave the first sign of what kind of year might be coming. Most homes were built from sun-dried mud bricks. Stone was used for monuments meant to last, but ordinary houses were usually made from the materials close at hand. Mud from the river, mixed with straw or plant fiber, could be shaped into bricks and left to harden in the sun. These bricks were practical in a country where timber was limited and heat was intense. They helped keep interiors cooler than the open air outside, especially when walls were thick. The drawback was durability. Rain, floodwater, and time could wear them down, which is why many everyday homes vanished, while temples and tombs survived. This creates a strange imbalance in how we see Egypt today. The stone world endured, while the living neighborhoods faded back into earth. Yet mud brick was the true material of daily life. It formed rooms where meals were cooked, children grew up, tools were stored, and families slept. Egypt's ordinary world was built from the river itself. Rooftops became cool sleeping places during hot Egyptian nights. A flat roof was not wasted space. In many homes, it functioned like an extra room under the sky. During the day, it could be used for work, drying goods, or catching air. At night, when indoor rooms held the heat of the sun, the roof offered relief. People could climb above the enclosed space of the house and rest where the air moved more freely. This simple habit reveals how closely architecture responded to climate. Ancient Egyptian homes were not just shelters. They were tools for managing heat, light, privacy, and daily labor. A staircase to the roof could change the way a family used the whole building. Sleeping there also gave people a different relationship with the night. Above the rooms and courtyards, they could rest near the open air while the settlement settled around them. It is a small detail, but it makes the ancient household feel suddenly alive and familiar. Poorer families often shared small homes with their animals. For people with limited space and resources, the boundary between human living areas and animal shelter could be close. Goats, donkeys, poultry, or other useful creatures might be kept near the household because they represented food, transport, labor, and wealth. This arrangement could be noisy and dirty, but it made practical sense. Animals needed protection, and families needed easy access to them. A donkey might carry loads. A goat might provide milk. Birds could supply eggs or meat. In a society where survival depended on making full use of what one owned, keeping animals close was a form of security. It also reminds us that ancient homes did not always match modern ideas of comfort. Smells, sounds, dust, and movement were part of domestic life. The house was not only a private retreat. It was a working space, a storage place, and sometimes a small shelter for the living assets that helped a family endure. Wealthier houses had courtyards that brought light and air inside. A courtyard could transform a home. Instead of relying only on small exterior openings, a house could breathe inward through an open central space. This brought brightness into surrounding rooms and allowed air to move through the building. In a hot climate, such design mattered. The courtyard could become a place for work, conversation, storage, or rest, depending on the time of day. It also created a degree of privacy because activity could happen inside the house rather than facing the street. Wealthier households had more ability to shape space in this way. Their homes might include reception areas, storage rooms, upper levels, and carefully arranged domestic zones. The courtyard stood at the heart of that arrangement. It showed that comfort in ancient Egypt was not only about decoration or possessions. It was also about controlling the environment. A well-planned house could soften heat, protect family life, and make daily routines easier to manage. Reed mats served as beds in many ordinary homes. Furniture in an average Egyptian household was often simple and portable. A woven mat could be rolled out for sleeping, then moved or stored when space was needed for daytime activities. Reeds and rushes grew in wet areas, making them useful materials for household goods. A mat might not sound luxurious, but it suited a home where rooms served many purposes. It kept the sleeper off the floor and provided a cleaner surface than bare earth. Wealthier people could own raised beds with wooden frames, but many families used humbler arrangements that reflected the practical rhythm of their lives. These sleeping habits also show how different comfort can be across time. The goal was not a soft mattress piled high with bedding. It was rest after labor, shade after heat, and enough separation from dust or insects to sleep. A simple woven surface carried the tired body into another working day beside the river. Headrests replaced soft pillows for many ancient Egyptian sleepers. At first, a headrest can look uncomfortable to modern eyes. It was usually a small support made from wood, stone, ivory, or other materials, with a curved top for the head or neck. Yet it served real purposes. It raised the head while sleeping, which could help with airflow and keep hair or wigs away from the ground. In a warm climate, it may also have felt cooler than resting on thick fabric. Some headrests were plain household items, while others were beautifully made and placed in tombs for use beyond death. Their presence in burials shows that Egyptians imagined familiar comforts continuing after life ended. The object also reveals a different idea of rest. Softness was not always the main measure of usefulness. Shape, support, heat, cleanliness, and status all mattered. A headrest belongs to that intimate side of history where a single object can show how people cared for their bodies every night. Cooking often happened outdoors to keep homes from overheating. Fire inside a small mud brick room could make the air smoky and stifling. Because of this, many cooking tasks were done in open areas, courtyards, or spaces where heat could escape more easily. This was not just a matter of convenience. It shaped the rhythm of the household. Grinding grain, preparing dough, tending an oven, and watching food cook all took time and physical effort. The work often happened close to other domestic tasks, so cooking became part of the visible life of the home. Fuel also mattered. Wood was not abundant everywhere, so people used whatever suitable materials were available, including plant remains or dried dung in some contexts. The kitchen was therefore not a single room with fixed appliances. It was a flexible working zone organized around heat, air, food, and labor. The choice to cook outside shows how practical ancient households had to be in every detail. Clay ovens turned simple dough into daily loaves of bread. Making bread was a laborious process that began long before the dough reached the heat. Grain had to be ground by hand, often on stone surfaces that could leave tiny grit in the flour. Water and leavening were added, then the mixture was shaped for baking. Clay ovens came in different forms, and their design allowed households or bakeries to produce the food people depended on every day. The smell of baking bread would have been one of the most familiar scents in an Egyptian settlement. It linked the household to the harvest and turned stored grain into immediate nourishment. The process also carried hidden consequences. Grit from grinding stones could wear down teeth over time, which is why dental problems appear in many remains. A loaf could sustain life and damage the body slowly at the same time. That is what makes daily bread so revealing. It was comfort, labor, survival, and cost in one ordinary food. Beer was thick, nutritious, and safer than some water. To an ancient Egyptian, beer was not just a drink for celebration. It was a daily staple that carried calories, comfort, and social meaning. The brewing process began with grain, which was partly baked, crumbled, mixed with water, and left to ferment. The result could be cloudy and filling, closer to liquid bread than the light beers many people imagine today. It was consumed by adults, workers, and sometimes children in milder forms. This did not mean everyone was constantly drunk. The alcohol level could be low, and the drink supplied energy during demanding labor. In a world where water might carry illness, fermentation also made it a safer choice in some circumstances. Beer was paid as rations, offered to the gods, and placed in tombs for the afterlife. It moved between the kitchen, the worksite, and the temple. A simple jar of beer could connect survival, religion, and the economy in one familiar taste. Garlic and onions were common foods with practical value. Sharp, strong, and easy to store, these plants were part of the Egyptian diet in ways both humble and important. They added flavor to meals that might otherwise depend heavily on grain. They were also portable foods for laborers who needed strength during long working days. Garlic was sometimes associated with endurance, while onions appeared in daily meals and ritual settings. Their layered forms may have encouraged symbolic meanings, especially where life and renewal were concerned. Yet their most immediate value was practical. They grew well, could be distributed easily, and helped make simple food more satisfying. Imagine a worker receiving a ration that included bread, beer, and these pungent additions. That small combination could turn basic nourishment into something sharper and more sustaining. Food in ancient Egypt was rarely just about taste. It was about keeping bodies working, households functioning, and communities supplied. These modest bulbs helped carry that burden with remarkable quiet efficiency. Dates and figs gave sweetness to everyday Egyptian meals. Before refined sugar became part of the ancient Mediterranean world, sweetness came from fruits and honey. Dates were especially valuable because they grew in hot conditions and could be eaten fresh or dried. A dried date was small, durable, and rich in energy, which made it useful for travel, work, and storage. Figs offered another kind of sweetness, softer and more seasonal, with a taste that must have been welcomed in a diet built around grain. These fruits could be eaten alone, added to dishes, or used in offerings. They also carried the feeling of abundance because sweetness was never as casual as it is today. A handful of fruit could brighten an ordinary meal. It could mark hospitality or provide comfort after labor. In tomb scenes, fruit often appears as part of a world people hope to enjoy forever. That tells us something powerful. Sweetness was not a luxury of kings alone. It was one of daily life's small rewards. Fish from the Nile fed families across the country. The river was not only a source of water for fields, it was also a living pantry. Fish could be caught with nets, hooks, spears, or traps, depending on the location and the skill of the fisher. For ordinary households, this mattered deeply because fish provided protein without requiring expensive herds. Some catches were eaten fresh near the water. Others were dried or salted so they could travel farther inland. Tomb paintings show fishing scenes that are full of movement, with boats cutting through marshes and fish crowding beneath the surface. These images can look peaceful, but the work itself required knowledge. People had to understand seasons, currents, reeds, and habits of different species. Fish also had complex meanings. Some kinds were welcomed as food, while others carried religious associations that could vary by place. The Nile's creatures entered stomachs, markets, stories, and sacred thought. A meal taken from the river was never just a meal. Wealthy diners enjoyed roasted meats at special gatherings. Meat was not absent from Egyptian life, but it was not equally available to everyone. Cattle, sheep, goats, and wild game could appear at elite tables, especially during feasts or ceremonial occasions. Roasting meat required animals, fuel, skilled preparation, and enough surplus to spare. That made it a sign of wealth and hospitality. Banquet scenes show guests seated with food, drink, music, and carefully arranged service. These gatherings were social performances as much as meals. They displayed status, strengthened relationships, and offered a taste of privilege. For poorer families, meat was likely less frequent, which made special portions more memorable when they arrived. Religious offerings also played a role. After food was presented to a deity, it could be redistributed to priests or others connected with the temple. In that way, a roast joint might pass through ritual before reaching human hands. The smell of cooking meat would have announced something out of the ordinary. Lentils and beans helped ordinary people stay nourished. Not every meal could depend on expensive foods, and this is where legumes became essential. Lentils, beans, and similar crops gave people a dependable source of protein and bulk. They could be dried, stored, boiled, and combined with bread or vegetables to create filling meals. For families living close to the edge of hunger, storage mattered as much as flavor. A jar of dried legumes represented future security. These foods also fit the agricultural world of Egypt because they could be grown, measured, and moved through household supply systems. They rarely received the glamour given to gold masks or carved statues, yet they were part of the true engine of survival. The body needs steady nourishment before it can build, farm, write, worship, or celebrate. A pot of cooked beans might seem ordinary, but it helped make the extraordinary achievements of Egypt possible. Civilization often rests on foods that do not look impressive until you imagine life without them. Salted fish could last longer in the Egyptian heat. Preservation was a serious challenge in a country where warmth could quickly spoil food. Salting helped solve that problem. By drawing moisture out of fish, salt made it harder for decay to take hold. This allowed catches from the river or coastal areas to remain edible for longer periods. It also made fish more useful as a trade item or ration because it did not have to be eaten immediately. The taste would have been strong, but strength of flavor can be a virtue when meals are simple. Preserved fish could be packed, stored, carried, and distributed in ways fresh food could not. This kind of technique shows Egyptian practicality at its best. People understood their environment and developed methods that stretched the usefulness of what they had. In a land shaped by sun, river, and distance, preservation was not a small detail. It was part of the quiet science of keeping families fed. Honey was precious because sugarcane had not reached Egypt. For Egyptians who wanted sweetness, honey was one of the most treasured options. Bees were kept in clay hives, and honey could be collected, stored, and used in food, medicine, and ritual. It was valuable because it required care and could not be produced as easily as grain. Without the later arrival of sugarcane, there was no cheap white sugar waiting in a bowl. Sweetness had to come from the natural world in more limited forms. That scarcity made honey feel special. It could enrich cakes, preserve certain foods, soothe the body, or appear in offerings. Its golden color and long shelf life may also have strengthened its appeal. Honey seems simple to us because it is easy to buy, but in ancient Egypt, it carried a different weight. A small amount represented labor from bees, skill from beekeepers, and access to a sweetness that the ordinary world did not give away freely. Farmers grew lettuce that carried religious and practical meanings. In Egypt, lettuce was not just a plain green leaf on a plate. Certain tall varieties were cultivated and associated with fertility, freshness, and divine power. The plant was linked with the god Min, whose imagery emphasized reproduction and abundance. That connection might surprise modern listeners, but ancient meanings often grew from shape, growth, and seasonal vitality. Lettuce also had everyday value as food. It could be eaten with other simple ingredients and offered a crisp contrast to grain-based meals. Its cultivation reminds us that Egyptian farming was not limited to survival staples alone. Gardens and fields produced foods that carried taste, symbolism, and status. A vegetable could belong to both dinner and devotion. This is one of the fascinating features of Egyptian life. The practical and the sacred were often woven together. Something as ordinary as a cultivated plant could carry meanings that reached from the household table to the temple wall. Lotus flowers sometimes appeared in food, perfume, and ritual. The lotus held a special place in Egyptian thought because it opened with the light and closed again as darkness came. This daily movement made it a natural symbol of renewal. Its image appears in art, jewelry, temple decoration, and funerary scenes. Yet the plant was not only symbolic. Parts of water lilies could be used in food, and their scent was connected with pleasure and elegance. In banquets, guests are sometimes shown holding blossoms, suggesting that fragrance played a role in atmosphere and enjoyment. The flower's association with rebirth made it especially powerful in tomb imagery, where the hope of renewed life was central. To the Egyptian eye, a lotus was not merely attractive. It was a living sign of return. Each opening bloom seemed to repeat a cosmic pattern. When it appeared near the living or the dead, it carried a message that was clear and moving. Life could close and life could open again. Linen clothing kept people cooler under the desert sun. Clothing in ancient Egypt had to answer a simple but demanding question. How do you dress for heat, work, and social expectations at the same time? Linen was the answer for much of the population. It was made from flax, a plant that could be processed into fibers and woven into cloth. The finest linen could be light, smooth, and almost translucent, while coarser grades served more ordinary needs. White linen reflected sunlight and helped the body stay cooler than heavier fabrics would. It also carried meanings of cleanliness and refinement, especially in formal or religious settings. Making it required many steps, from harvesting the plant to spinning thread and weaving cloth. Every garment therefore held the work of many hands. A simple linen tunic was not just an item of dress. It was agriculture transformed into comfort, status, and identity. In a hot climate, fabric itself became a kind of technology. Children often wore little clothing until they grew older. In a warm climate, very young children did not always need much clothing. Many are shown with shaved heads, side locks of hair, ornaments, or simple protective items rather than full outfits. This was practical because small children grow quickly, soil garments easily, and spend much of their time close to the home. Clothing also marked stages of life. As children matured, they took on more adult forms of dress, behavior, and responsibility. The absence of elaborate clothing in early childhood does not suggest neglect. It reflects climate, custom, and the different expectations placed on the young. Children were valued, watched over, and protected through family care, amulets, and household religion. Their appearance in art often emphasizes youth clearly, using hair, gesture, and scale to show their place in the family. This reminds us that childhood was visible as a distinct stage. Even in the world of hard work, people recognized the tenderness and vulnerability of early life. Makeup protected eyes as well as expressing beauty. The dark lines around Egyptian eyes were not only decorative. Eye paint could reduce glare from the sun, help repel insects, and possibly offer some protection against infection because of the minerals it contained. Kohl was commonly made from dark substances such as galena, which produced the striking black look seen in art. Applying it required skill, and containers for cosmetics could be beautifully made. Both men and women used eye makeup, so it cannot be understood only through modern ideas of femininity. It belonged to health, beauty, status, and ritual presentation. The eyes mattered because they were expressive, vulnerable, and symbolically powerful. To outline them was to enhance the face while guarding it from a harsh environment. This is why Egyptian cosmetics feel so compelling. A single dark stroke could be practical and elegant at once. It helped a person face sun, dust, insects, and society with the same carefully prepared gaze. Green eye paint could symbolize protection and rebirth. Not all Egyptian eye makeup was black. Green pigments, often made from malachite, carried their own meanings. The color green was linked with growth, freshness, and renewed life. It could evoke vegetation returning after water touched the land, and it was associated with healing and protection in certain contexts. When placed around the eyes, the pigment did more than change appearance. It gave the face a symbolic charge. The person wearing it might be participating in ideas of health, vitality, and divine care. Malachite also connected people to mining, trade, and skilled preparation because pigments had to be obtained and processed before they reached the body. The result was a small but meaningful act of transformation. A face could be made brighter, safer, and more aligned with sacred ideas through color. Egyptian beauty was rarely shallow. It often rested on the belief that appearance could influence well-being, identity, and the unseen forces around a person. Wigs helped wealthy Egyptians manage heat, style, and status. A wig could be practical, fashionable, and symbolic, all at once. In a hot country, shaving or closely cutting natural hair made cleanliness easier, especially when lice and sweat were concerns. A wig allowed someone to maintain an impressive appearance without keeping heavy hair on the scalp all the time. Wealthy people owned examples made from human hair, plant fiber, or combinations of materials. Some were carefully braided, scented, and shaped for formal occasions. In art, wigs can signal rank, elegance, maturity, or participation in ceremony. They were not merely disguises. They were objects of presentation. Putting one on could prepare a person for a banquet, a ritual, or a public moment where appearance mattered. The effect must have been striking, especially when paired with linen, jewelry, and cosmetic detail. A wig showed that the body could be managed, styled, and elevated. It turned personal grooming into a visible statement of position. Both men and women wore jewelry with protective meanings. Jewelry in ancient Egypt was beautiful, but beauty was only part of its power. Necklaces, rings, bracelets, collars, and beads could carry protective force through shape, color, material, or inscription. Gold suggested divine brightness and permanence. carnelian could evoke warmth and vitality. Turquoise and pharaohs brought vivid color that felt alive against the skin. Men, women, and children all wore ornaments, although wealth determined how elaborate they could be. A necklace might mark status during life and continue to serve the deceased in the tomb. Some pieces showed gods, sacred symbols, or tiny forms meant to guard the wearer. This means that jewelry was not simply decoration added after the serious parts of life. It was part of how people faced danger, illness, uncertainty, and death. A bead against the chest could be a small shield. A ring could be a statement. A shining collar could turn the body into a protected and meaningful surface. Amulets were worn to guard bodies from unseen harm. Egyptians lived in a world where danger was not limited to what could be seen. Illness, misfortune, dangerous animals, hostile magic, and spiritual disorder all required protection. Amulets answered that need in physical form. They could be shaped like eyes, scarabs, knots, hearts, pillars, animals, or gods. Some were worn in daily life. Others were placed among mummy wrappings to protect the dead on their journey beyond the tomb. The material mattered because color and substance carried meaning. Blue and green could suggest renewal. Red might bring power or dangerous force under control. The amulet worked through its form, its placement, and sometimes words spoken over it. To modern eyes, it may look like a charm. To an Egyptian, it was a tool of survival. It made invisible hopes tangible. You could tie protection to a wrist, press it against the skin, and carry divine order into an uncertain day. Sandals were useful, but many people walked barefoot. Footwear existed in ancient Egypt, but it was not always worn. Many people went barefoot during ordinary activities, especially if they were poor or working in familiar spaces. Sandals were made from materials such as leather, papyrus, or palm fiber, and they could protect the feet from hot ground, rough surfaces, or formal discomfort. Wealthier people might own finer pairs, while ceremonial sandals could carry special meanings. In some images, servants carry sandals for important figures, which suggests they might be put on when needed rather than worn constantly. Their feet also mattered in sacred spaces. Priests could remove footwear as part of ritual purity. This makes sandals more interesting than a simple item of clothing. They reveal status, environment, and behavior. To have them was useful. To wear them at the right moment could be meaningful. The ancient Egyptian foot moved between dust, temple floor, field edge, and formal path with careful social awareness. Cleanliness mattered deeply in Egyptian religion and daily life. Cleanliness was more than comfort. It was connected to health, dignity, and proper contact with the sacred. Egyptians washed their bodies, cared for their clothing, used oils, shaved hair, and paid attention to personal presentation. For priests, purification became even more demanding, because approaching a god required a body prepared in specific ways. In daily life, cleanliness helped people manage heat, insects, odors, and disease. Linen could be washed, bodies could be rinsed, and cosmetics could protect exposed skin and eyes. The concern also had moral and spiritual force. Dirt was not only unpleasant. It could be associated with disorder, neglect, or distance from divine order. This attitude shaped temples, households, and burial customs. The body was not treated as something separate from religion. It was one of the places where order had to be maintained. To clean, shave, wash, and dress carefully was to place oneself in harmony with a world that valued balance. Priests shaved their bodies to maintain ritual purity. Serving in a temple required more than knowing prayers. The priest's body had to be prepared for sacred work. Shaving hair from the head and body helped prevent lice and showed separation from ordinary impurity. Priests also washed frequently and wore clean linen when performing duties. These acts were not about vanity. They were part of becoming fit to enter the presence of a god. The temple was treated as a divine household, and the deity's image received care through daily ritual. Food was presented, clothing was offered, and sacred spaces were maintained with precision. A priest who approached this work had to be physically and ritually clean. Shaving made that preparation visible. It marked the body as disciplined, controlled, and ready. This detail helps us understand the seriousness of Egyptian worship. Religion was not only belief in the mind. It was enacted through repeated actions, careful bodies, and routines that turned service into order. Perfumed oils helped protect skin from dryness and sun. In Egypt's dry climate, skin could suffer from heat, dust, and constant exposure. Oils and scented ointments helped soften the body and protect it from irritation. They could be made with animal fats, plant oils, resins, and aromatic ingredients. The results were used after washing, during grooming, at banquets, and in ritual settings. Fragrance mattered because scent carried associations with freshness, status, and divine presence. A pleasant smell could mark refinement, while certain aromas were suitable for offerings or burial. Cones shown on the heads of banquet guests may represent perfumed substances connected with festivity and elegance, though their exact nature is debated. What is clear is that scent had power in Egyptian life. It could soothe the body and shape the atmosphere around a person. To apply oil was not a trivial luxury. It was care for the skin, participation in social life, and sometimes a small act of sacred preparation. Mirrors were polished metal treasures in well-kept homes. Before glass mirrors became common, Egyptians used polished metal surfaces to see their reflection. Copper, bronze, or other metals could be shaped into a reflective disc and attached to a handle. Many handles were designed with elegant forms, sometimes showing papyrus stems, female figures, or protective symbols. A mirror was useful for applying cosmetics, arranging hair, and checking appearance. Yet it also carried deeper meanings because reflection itself felt powerful. The shining disc could resemble the sun, and some mirrors were associated with beauty, rebirth, and goddess imagery. Owning a fine mirror suggested wealth and attention to personal presentation. It was an intimate object that linked the face to craftsmanship and status. Imagine lifting a polished disc in the morning and seeing a slightly softened version of yourself in its surface. That brief moment of recognition connects us across time. The ancient desire to prepare the face for the world is deeply familiar. Barbers and hairdressers had important roles in Egyptian society. Hair care was not a casual matter. It affected cleanliness, status, beauty, and identity. Barbers could shave heads, trim beards, remove body hair, and help people maintain the appearance expected in different settings. Hairdressers arranged natural hair and wigs, sometimes creating intricate braids or formal styles. Their work was practical because shorter hair reduced discomfort in heat and helped manage pests. It was also social because grooming changed how a person appeared at work, home, ceremony, or court. Tomb scenes and objects connected with grooming show that tools such as razors, combs, and hairpins belonged to a wider world of personal care. A well-groomed body could signal respectability. A carefully styled wig could announce wealth. A shaved head could prepare someone for ritual service. These specialists worked at the boundary between ordinary maintenance and transformation. With a blade, comb, or skilled hand, they helped people become publicly recognizable versions of themselves. Tattoos may have marked healing, protection, or devotion. For a long time, Egyptian tattooing was not fully understood. but preserved bodies and modern analysis have revealed striking clues. Some tattoos appear on women and may be connected with protection during pregnancy, childbirth, or healing. Others show symbols, animals, or sacred imagery that suggest devotion and ritual meaning. The placement of tattoos matters because marks on certain parts of the body may have been intended to guard vulnerable areas or invoke divine help. These were not random decorations. They were lasting signs placed into the skin. That permanence gives them a special force. Clothing can be removed, jewelry can be taken off, but a tattoo remains with the body through work, sleep, illness, and age. In some cases, it even remained after death, allowing us to see choices made thousands of years ago. A small mark on ancient skin can open a surprisingly intimate window into fear, faith, and personal identity. Children played with balls, dolls, and carved animal toys. Ancient childhood was not only discipline and preparation for work. Children played. Archaeologists have found objects that show young Egyptians had toys shaped by imagination and everyday materials. Balls could be made from leather, reeds, or other available substances. Dolls might be carved, painted, or formed with simple bodies and hair made from beads or fibers. Animal toys could represent creatures familiar from farms, homes, or the river. Some had moving parts, which suggests delight in motion and surprise. Play helped children learn coordination, social behavior, and the world around them. It also gave moments of pleasure in households where life could be physically demanding. These toys are powerful because they make ancient families feel close. A carved creature or warm ball reminds us that children laughed, copied adults, invented stories, and became attached to small objects. The world of pharaohs had room for a child's hand reaching toward a toy. Board games made evenings social in both rich and modest homes. When the day's labor ended, people could gather around games that turned chance and strategy into shared entertainment. Boards were scratched into surfaces carved from wood or made with more expensive materials for elite households. Pieces could be simple counters or carefully shaped objects. Games gave people a way to compete, talk, and pass time together. They also crossed social lines because the desire to play is not limited to wealth. A modest version could serve the same human need as a luxurious one. In a world without screens, evening entertainment depended on voice, music, conversation, and tactile objects. A board placed between two players created suspense with every move. Victory brought pleasure, and loss invited another round. Some games later gathered symbolic meanings, but their social value was immediate. They brought people face to face. Through them, we glimpse ancient Egyptians not as distant figures, but as people who enjoyed challenge and company. Senet was played for fun and spiritual symbolism. Senet is one of the most famous games from ancient Egypt, and its long history makes it especially fascinating. At first, it seems to have been a board game of movement, chance, and competition. Players moved pieces across a grid, probably using throwing sticks or similar devices to determine progress. Over time, the game became linked with the journey after death. The movement across the board could represent passage through danger toward a blessed state. This gave Senet a double life. It could entertain the living and also express hopes for the dead. Boards have been found in tombs, which suggests the deceased might need the game in the next world, or that it symbolized successful passage through it. Imagine a game that begins as a pastime and becomes a map of eternity. That transformation is deeply Egyptian. Play, belief, and destiny could meet on a small board marked with squares. Music filled homes, temples, festivals, and royal ceremonies. Sound was woven into Egyptian life. It marked celebration, devotion, labor, mourning, and power. In homes, music could accompany private enjoyment or family gatherings. In temples, it helped honor the gods and create the right atmosphere for ritual. During festivals, sound carried through streets and open spaces, drawing people into shared experience. At court, musicians added beauty and dignity to elite events. The performers could be highly skilled, and some held respected positions. Music also appears in tomb art because the afterlife was imagined as a place where pleasure and order continued. What makes Egyptian music so captivating is that we can see the instruments and performers, but we cannot fully hear the original sound. The melodies have mostly vanished. This leaves us with a powerful mystery. We know that rhythm and psalm once filled these spaces, but their exact voices are lost. The silence of the past makes the evidence feel even more precious. Harps, flutes, and drums carried rhythm through Egyptian gatherings. The instruments of ancient Egypt gave texture to public and private life. Harps could be elegant and large, producing tones suited to formal performance. Flutes and red pipes brought breath into music, creating melodies that could travel through rooms or outdoor spaces. Drums and clappers supplied rhythm for dancing, procession, or celebration. Musicians are often shown in groups, which suggests layered performances rather than isolated sound. Some performers were blind, and tomb scenes sometimes show them with striking individuality. Instruments were made from wood, red, skin, string, and skilled craftsmanship. Their shapes changed over time, which tells us that musical taste developed across Egyptian history. A gathering with music was not simply louder than one without it. It became charged with emotion, movement, and memory. Rhythm helped people experience time together. A drum beat could coordinate bodies. A melody could soften a room. A harp could turn status into sound. Dancers performed at banquets, religious festivals, and funerary rites. Movement had a place in Egyptian life wherever emotion needed form. At banquets, dancers entertained guests and heightened the pleasure of the occasion. During religious festivals, movement could honor divine presence and help carry celebration through the crowd. In funerary settings, dance might express mourning, transition, or renewal. This range is what makes Egyptian dance so interesting. It was not confined to one mood. It could be joyful, sacred, formal, or intense. Images show bodies bending, turning, clapping, and moving with trained control. Some dancers were professionals, and their skill mattered because performance shaped how an event felt to everyone present. Costumes, hair, music, and gesture worked together. The human body became part of ceremony, not just an observer of it. In a civilization so often remembered through still statues, dance reminds us of motion. Ancient Egypt was not frozen in stone. It moved, sounded, celebrated, and grieved through living bodies. Storytellers kept older traditions alive through spoken performance. Before a tale was ever copied by a scribe, it could live in the human voice. Stories passed through households, gatherings, work groups, and courts, changing slightly as each speaker gave them new breath. This mattered in a world where not everyone could read. A powerful story did not need a written page to travel. It needed memory, rhythm, and an audience willing to listen. Ancient Egyptian tales could involve clever servants, shipwrecked travelers, magical events, royal lessons, and encounters with beings beyond ordinary life. Some were entertaining. Some carried moral weight. Some strengthened ideas about kingship, loyalty, courage, or destiny. Spoken performance also gave the storyteller power. A pause could create suspense. A change in voice could make a character suddenly feel present. What survives on papyrus may be only the shadow of a larger world of performance. Around an evening gathering, history, humor, and wonder could pass from mouth to ear. Scribes held power because writing unlocked government and memory. To write in ancient Egypt was to hold one of the keys to society. A scribe could record taxes, copy orders, manage deliveries, preserve legal agreements, and make a person's name last beyond death. That ability placed scribes close to the machinery of power. Farmers produced food, craftspeople made goods, and laborers built enormous works. But scribes turned all of it into records that officials could control. Their training took years, and their skill separated them from those who worked mainly with their hands. The writing palette became a symbol of status. With ink, red pen, and prepared surface, a scribe could turn speech into authority. A spoken promise might fade, but a written account could be checked, stored, and used again. This made writing more than communication. It was memory made official. In a civilization that cared deeply about order, the person who could record the world helped govern it. Hieroglyphs were sacred signs, not everyday handwriting. The beautiful signs many people recognize today were not the quick script of ordinary paperwork. They were formal symbols used on monuments, temple walls, tombs, statues, and objects meant to carry dignity or sacred meaning. The word itself is connected with holy carving, which suits their role. A bird, eye, hand, red, or seated figure could stand for a sound, an idea, or a whole word, depending on use. This gave the system remarkable richness. It was visual and linguistic at the same time. Hieroglyphs could be arranged to suit beauty as well as meaning, which made inscriptions feel carefully composed rather than simply written. Their sacred quality also explains why they appear so often in places linked with gods and eternity. They were not casual marks dashed off in a hurry. They were signs meant to endure. Each carved symbol helped fix speech, identity, prayer, and royal power into lasting form. Faster scripts helped officials record taxes, letters, and accounts. When daily administration demanded speed, Egyptians used writing forms that were quicker than carved hieroglyphs. Hieratic was a flowing script used for many religious, literary, and administrative texts. Later, Demotic developed as an even more abbreviated form for practical writing. These scripts could be written with reed pens on papyrus, pottery pieces, wooden boards, or other surfaces. Their speed mattered because Egypt ran on records. Officials needed to track grain, labor, deliveries, livestock, land, wages, and disputes. A slow, monumental script would not suit a busy office. Faster writing made government possible at scale. It allowed information to move from local communities to higher authorities and back again. This is one of the hidden engines of Egyptian civilization. Behind every great monument stood a mountain of practical notes, lists, receipts, and instructions. The state did not function only through command. It functioned through handwriting, but could keep pace with work. Papyrus was valuable, so students practiced on pottery pieces. A clean sheet made from papyrus was not something to waste on beginner mistakes. The plant had to be cut, prepared, pressed, dried, and smoothed before it became a writing surface. That labor made it valuable. Students therefore practiced on broken pottery fragments or flakes of limestone. These cheaper materials could hold exercises, copied sayings, drawings, calculations, and rough drafts. To us, those scraps are priceless because they preserve the learning process. They show clumsy hands becoming trained hands. They reveal repeated phrases and corrections. They make education feel physical, not abstract. A young student had to sit, copy, remember, and endure the slow discipline of signs. Some practiced texts praised the scribble life while warning against harder occupations. The lesson was clear. Master writing, and you might avoid the back-breaking work of the fields or workshops. A humble shard could become the first step toward a powerful career. School discipline could be strict for aspiring young scribes. Learning to write was a serious path, and the training could be severe. Egyptian educational texts often present the student as someone who must listen, obey, and practice without complaint. Teachers warned that laziness would lead to failure, while diligence could bring advancement. Physical punishment appears in some writings, which suggests that discipline could be harsh by modern standards. Yet the reward was enormous. A successful student might enter an administrative world with better food, cleaner work, and higher status than many laboring families could expect. The pressure came from the difficulty of the system itself. Signs had to be memorized. Script had to be mastered. Model letters, wisdom texts, and accounts had to be copied accurately. Education shaped not only the hand, but the character. The ideal scribe was attentive, controlled, and useful to authority. Behind the polished records of Egypt, there were young learners being pushed toward precision one line at a time. Literacy offered one of the clearest paths to advancement. Most people in ancient Egypt could not read or write fluently. That made literacy rare and powerful. A person who mastered it could step into work that connected them with temples, estates, courts, storehouses, and the royal administration. This did not mean every scribe became rich or famous, but it did mean writing opened doors closed to many others. It offered a way to move beyond the physical demands of farming or heavy labor. Instructional texts often praise the scribble profession for exactly this reason. They present writing as a route to comfort, respect, and influence. The idea is easy to understand, even today. Skills that few people possess can change a life. In Egypt, the skilled reader could interpret orders, preserve accounts, and speak through documents across distance and time. Literacy made a person useful to power. He could turn a child with discipline into an adult with authority. Letters reveal family arguments that still feel surprisingly familiar. Some of the most human voices from ancient Egypt come from private letters. They do not only speak of kings or temples. They show people worrying about property, complaining about relatives, asking for help, defending themselves, and expressing frustration. A brother might accuse another of neglect. A husband might write about household matters. A worker might request supplies. These documents collapse the distance between the ancient world and our own. The language may be old, but the emotions are recognizable. People wanted fairness. They wanted attention. They worried when others failed them. Letters also reveal how writing entered everyday relationships. It could carry affection, pressure, anger, and obligation. A message sent across distance made absence less complete. It allowed someone to reach into another household with words. These surviving fragments are powerful because they were not meant to impress history. They were practical communications, and that makes their honesty feel startlingly alive. Love poetry praised beauty in tender and playful language. Egyptian love poems reveal a softer side of the ancient world. They speak with longing, admiration, excitement, and sometimes teasing charm. The beloved may be described through scent, voice, movement, or the ache of waiting. These poems show that romantic feeling was not hidden beneath the weight of religion and kingship. It was vivid, personal, and sometimes surprisingly direct. Their speakers can sound bashful one moment and bold the next. They reveal people who noticed the body, worried about desire, and delighted in affection. The settings may involve gardens, water, homes, or meetings arranged with care, but the emotional core is simple. Someone wants to be near someone else. That longing has crossed thousands of years without losing its force. The poems also remind us that literacy preserved more than tax records and royal praise. It preserved the pulse of private feeling. Ancient Egypt could be grand, but it could also be intimate. Satirical writings joked about jobs, animals, and human foolishness. Not all Egyptian writing was solemn. Some texts played with exaggeration, mockery, and absurdity. Satire could make fun of professions by describing their discomforts in almost comic detail. It could use animals in human roles, turning the social world upside down for amusement. A mouse might be treated like a noble figure, or a cat might serve in a scene that twists expectations. Humor allowed Egyptians to observe the pressures of life without speaking in a fully serious voice. It also showed that they enjoyed cleverness. To laugh at work, status, and ordinary weakness is a very human act. Satirical writing may have entertained students, trained readers, or offered a safe way to explore social tensions. Its existence is important because it breaks the false image of a civilization concerned only with death and ceremony. Egyptians could be sharp, playful, and wonderfully aware of how ridiculous people can be. Skilled artisans lived in planned villages near royal tombs. Some of the finest evidence for everyday life comes from communities of specialized workers. These artisans were not wandering laborers. They could live in organized settlements built near the tombs they helped create. One famous village housed painters, craftsmen, stonecutters, plasterers, and other specialists who worked on royal burial places. The layout of such a settlement shows planning, oversight, and a close link between work and home. Families lived there for generations, creating a community with its own routines, disputes, and traditions. The workers' skill was extraordinary. They prepared walls, sketched scenes, applied color, and shaped spaces meant for royal eternity. Yet their own lives were filled with ordinary concerns. They borrowed goods, raised children, argued with neighbors, and depended on deliveries. This contrast is fascinating. The people who decorated hidden chambers for kings also lived in modest houses where daily life left thousands of written traces behind. Deir el-Medina workers recorded absences for surprisingly human reasons. Administrative notes from the royal workers' village reveal why people missed work, and the reasons can feel unexpectedly familiar. Some absences were caused by illness. Others involved family obligations, religious duties, brewing, or problems at home. There were also mentions of stings, injuries, and personal errands. These records were not written for our curiosity. They were part of work management. Yet they give us a rare glimpse of labor as lived experience. The builders of royal tombs were not anonymous machines of construction. They were people with aching bodies, households to manage, and events that interrupted schedules. This makes the past feel less distant. A supervisor needed to know who was absent and why. A worker had to balance duty with life's demands. The result is a record of humanity in the margins of bureaucracy. Through these brief notes, ancient workers step out from behind the monuments and become individuals again. Some tomb builders stayed home because of scorpion bites. Among the recorded reasons for missing work, dangerous creatures could play a role. A scorpion sting was not a small inconvenience in a desert environment. It could cause severe pain, swelling, fear, and sometimes serious illness. Workers living near rocky ground and dry landscapes had to share their world with animals that could harm them without warning. This detail gives the royal worksite a sharper reality. We often imagine tomb building as a matter of stone, paint, and state organization, but the workers' bodies were vulnerable every day. A sting could stop skilled labor immediately. It could keep a man from carrying tools, climbing paths, or standing in the heat. The record of such an absence is brief, but it opens a whole scene. A worker wakes or returns home in pain. A household reacts. A supervisor notes the lost day. Even the making of eternity could be interrupted by a creature hiding underfoot. Workers could strike when rations were delayed by officials. One of the most remarkable episodes in labor history comes from ancient Egypt. Royal tomb workers protested when their food supplies failed to arrive properly. These were not vague complaints whispered at home. The workers left their tasks and demanded what they were owed. Their payment came largely in rations, so delays threatened household survival. Grain, oil, and other supplies were not bonuses. They were the basis of life. The strike shows that these skilled workers understood their value. They were part of a system, but they were not powerless within it. Officials had to respond because royal tomb construction depended on organized expertise. The episode also reveals the fragility of administration. A great state could build magnificent monuments, yet a breakdown in delivery could bring work to a halt. This is history at its most gripping. Behind royal grandeur, ordinary laborers could stand together and force authority to listen. Payment often came as grain, beer, oil, and cloth. In a world without regular coinage for most of Egyptian history, wages often took the form of goods. Workers might receive measured amounts of grain, jars of beer, oil for the body or household, and textiles for clothing or exchange. These rations were not random. They represented the practical things a family needed to keep functioning. Grain could become meals. Oil could protect skin and support daily care. Cloth could clothe the body or act as a valuable item in exchange. Payment in goods also tied workers directly to storage systems and official distribution. If the deliveries failed, life became difficult quickly. This kind of economy can be hard to picture today because wages are usually imagined as money. For many Egyptians, wealth was more tangible. It could be carried in a sack, poured from a jar, folded as fabric, or stored in a household corner. Value had weight, smell, and texture. Craft workers shaped stone with tools that demanded extraordinary patience. Egyptian stonework can look impossible until you imagine the patience behind it. Craftspeople used tools of copper, bronze, stone, wood, sand, and abrasive materials to cut, smooth, drill, and polish. Hard stone did not yield easily. It resisted the worker hour after hour. The process demanded planning before the first blow because a mistake could ruin days of effort. Statues, vessels, blocks, and reliefs all required different skills. Sometimes the worker removed tiny amounts at a time, trusting repetition more than force. This is what makes the results so astonishing. A polished stone bowl, a carved face, or a clean inscription carries the memory of countless controlled movements. The tools were simple compared with modern machinery, but the knowledge in the hands was profound. Ancient Egyptian craftsmanship was not magic. It was mastery. It turned stubborn material into form through time, discipline, and an almost unbelievable respect for the work. Copper chisels needed constant sharpening during hard stone work. Copper was useful, but it had limits. When driven against hard stone, a chisel could quickly dull, bend, or lose its bite. This meant that tool maintenance was part of the work itself. A craftsperson did not simply carve for hours without interruption. Tools had to be repaired, reshaped, and sharpened again and again. The rhythm of labor included striking, checking, adjusting, and returning to the surface. For especially hard materials, abrasives such as sand played an important role, grinding where metal alone was not enough. This practical reality makes ancient workmanship even more impressive. The finished object hides the frustration of worn edges and repeated preparation. Every clean line required not just artistic intention, but a system for keeping tools usable. We tend to admire the monument and forget the chisel. Yet the chisel had its own story of stress and renewal. In the hands of a skilled worker, even an imperfect tool could make something lasting. Painters used mineral colors that still glow after millennia. The colors of Egyptian art were often made from minerals and prepared pigments that could survive for astonishing lengths of time. Red and yellow came from ochres. Black could come from carbon. White might be made from gypsum or similar materials. Blue and green required more specialized sources and preparation. These pigments were mixed with a binder and applied to prepared surfaces in tombs, temples, coffins, and objects. Their endurance is one reason Egyptian art still feels so immediate. A painted figure can look as if the hand has only just left the wall, even after thousands of years. Color also carried meaning. It was not chosen only for realism. Skin tones, divine bodies, vegetation, water, and sacred objects could be coded through established conventions. The painter worked within a visual language that viewers understood. A bright surface was therefore both beautiful and readable. It spoke through line, form, and color that time has not fully silenced. Tomb artists followed rules that made bodies instantly readable. Egyptian figures often show heads in profile, eyes facing forward, shoulders front-facing, and legs turned sideways. This was not because artists could not see the body realistically. It was a deliberate system for clarity. Each part was shown from its most recognizable angle, creating a complete and legible human form. The goal was not a snapshot of how a person looked in one moment. It was a stable image that captured identity, role, and action. In tombs, that mattered greatly because images could support the deceased in the next life. Scenes of farming, feasting, hunting, and offering were organized according to rules that made them clear and effective. Size could show importance. Gesture could show status. Placement could guide meaning. Once you understand this, Egyptian art stops looking stiff and starts looking brilliantly purposeful. It is not failed realism. It is a visual technology designed to make life understandable, orderly, and enduring. Potters supplied households with jars, bowls, cups, and lamps. Clay vessels were everywhere in daily life. They stored grain, held water, carried beer, cooked food, served meals, and lit rooms. Potters shaped the containers that made household routine possible. Some vessels were rough and practical. Others were finely made, slipped, burnished, or decorated. Because pottery breaks easily but survives well in fragments, it has become one of the most important clues for archaeologists. A broken rim, base, or handle can help date a site and reveal habits of storage, trade, and cooking. To ancient users, these objects may have seemed ordinary. To us, they are fingerprints of everyday living. A jar could tell us what people kept. A bowl could show how food was served. A lamp could suggest how darkness was managed after sunset. Pottery reminds us that civilization depends on containers. Before goods can be stored, shared, measured, or transported, someone has to make a vessel that can hold them. Basket makers turned reeds into containers, mats, and furniture. Reeds, grasses, and palm fibers gave Egyptian craftspeople flexible materials for everyday needs. Basket makers could weave containers for carrying produce, storing goods, catching fish, or organizing household supplies. They also made mats, screens, and light furnishings. The work required knowledge of how plants behaved when cut, dried, soaked, twisted, and tightened into shape. A good basket had to be strong enough for use but light enough to carry. This craft rarely receives the ore given to stone carving, yet it was essential. Baskets moved harvests. Mats shaped sleeping and working spaces. Woven objects helped households function in a world where wood could be costly. Their organic materials often decayed, which means far fewer survive than stone or pottery. That loss can make the craft seem less important than it was. In truth, woven goods were among the quiet foundations of daily life. They turned river plants into practical architecture for the hand. Weavers transformed flax into the linen Egypt became famous for. The making of linen began in the fields and ended on the body, but every stage required skill. Flax plants had to be harvested, processed, and separated into fibers. Those fibers were spun into thread, then woven into cloth with patience and control. The finest linen could be astonishingly delicate, while coarser cloth served workaday needs. Egypt became famous for this fabric because it suited the climate and could be produced in large quantities. Weaving was not only domestic labor, it could be organized through workshops, estates, and institutions. Finished cloth had value as clothing, payment, offering, and burial material. It wrapped bodies in life and death. It marked status through quality and cleanliness. A strip of linen might look plain, but it carried the work of farmers, spinners, weavers, washers, and distributors. It also carried Egypt's genius for turning a plant into something socially powerful, physically useful, and symbolically pure. Boat builders connected villages through the country's greatest highway. In Egypt, the most important route was not a road. It was the river. Boat builders made the vessels that allowed people, goods, officials, soldiers, stone, grain, and messages to move through the country. Their craft had to answer many demands. A fishing boat, a cargo vessel, and a ceremonial bark did not serve the same purpose. Some boats were made from bundled reeds. Others used wooden planks joined with impressive skill, despite limited access to large timber. The result was a transportation network that tied scattered communities into one civilization. Without boats, Egypt would have been far harder to govern. The river made movement possible, but builders turned that possibility into reality. Every vessel carried knowledge of buoyancy, current, wind, load, and repair. A boat sliding along the Nile was more than transport. It was a moving link between farm and city, temple and quarry, ruler and subject. The Nile carried people faster than many desert roads. Travel through the desert could be difficult, exposed, and dangerous. The river offered a smoother path through the heart of Egypt. Boats could move people and goods between settlements with far less strain than overland transport. This made the Nile a central artery of communication. Officials could travel to inspect regions. Traders could move supplies. Families could visit relatives. Stone and timber could be carried in ways that would have been far harder across sand and rough ground. The river also gave travelers landmarks, stopping places, and access to water. Its banks were lined with fields, villages, temples, and working communities. Movement along it was not only practical, it shaped how people understood the country. Egypt stretched as a long ribbon of life beside the water, and the river connected that ribbon into a whole. To travel by boat was to move through the civilization's living spine, with the landscape unfolding steadily on either side. Sailboats moved south by wind and north by current. The Nile offered a remarkable advantage to travelers. Its current flowed north toward the Mediterranean, while prevailing winds often blew from the north toward the south. This meant boats could use the current in one direction and sails in the other. For an ancient civilization, that was a gift of geography. It allowed two-way movement along a long, narrow country with surprising efficiency. A vessel heading north could lower or manage its sail and let the river help carry it. A vessel heading south could raise its sail and catch the wind against the current. This natural balance supported trade, administration, and communication across great distances. It also shaped boat design and travel planning. The river did not remove every difficulty, but it gave Egypt a transportation system that felt almost designed for unity. Geography became infrastructure. Wind and water worked together, and human skill learned how to ride between them. Donkeys carried loads long before camels became common in Egypt. For much of pharaonic history, the dependable pack animal was the donkey. Camels became common in Egypt much later, so earlier communities relied on donkeys to move goods over land. These animals carried sacks, jars, tools, produce, and trade items across paths where carts or boats could not always go. They were especially useful between fields, villages, desert routes, and work sites. A donkey might seem humble, but its importance was enormous. It extended the carrying power of a household or expedition. It made local exchange easier. It helped connect places beyond the immediate reach of the river. Donkeys also appear in scenes of farming and transport, often burdened with heavy loads. Their stubborn reputation hides a deeper truth. They were hard-working partners in survival. Without them, many tasks would have required far more human labor. Ancient Egypt's grand achievements depended not only on kings and officials, but on small hooves moving steadily through dust. Markets often worked through barter rather than minted coins. For most of ancient Egypt's long history, buying and selling did not revolve around coins in the modern sense. People exchanged goods and services according to agreed values. Grain, cloth, oil, metals, livestock, and other items could function as measures of worth. A person might trade produce for a tool or exchange labor for supplies. This did not mean the economy was primitive or chaotic. Egyptians had ways to calculate value, record obligations, and settle transactions. Standard weights and units helped make exchange more orderly. The system was practical because wealth often existed as useful goods rather than abstract money. A sack of grain could feed a family. A length of cloth could clothe someone or be traded again. Markets were therefore places of negotiation, conversation, and judgment. Every exchange required a sense of fairness and need. Value was not hidden in a small stamped disc. It sat in the hand, the jar, the basket, and the storeroom. Taxes could be paid in crops, livestock, or labor. The Egyptian state did not rely on income tax as modern people know it. It drew wealth from the things people produced and the work they could provide. Crops were assessed, animals could be counted, and labor could be demanded for public projects. This made taxation visible in everyday life. A harvest was not only a family achievement, it was also something officials could measure and claim a share of. Labor obligations could pull people away from normal routines, especially during periods when fields were not actively being cultivated. Taxes supported temples, officials, storehouses, building works, and royal power. They also created tension because assessment could be heavy or unfair. The system required scribes, inspectors, measurements, and enforcement. Through taxation, the state reached into villages and households. It turned local production into national strength. The farmer's field and the herder's animals became part of a much larger structure of authority. Officials measured fields after floods changed their boundaries. When the river spread across the land, it could blur or alter the edges of fields. After the waters withdrew, boundaries sometimes needed to be checked again. This made measurement a vital skill. Surveyors and officials used cords, markers, and records to restore order to the agricultural landscape. The work mattered because land determined taxes, inheritance, rights, and responsibility. If a boundary was wrong, a family might lose part of its livelihood or be charged unfairly. Measurement, therefore, had real consequences. It also shows how Egyptian administration responded to the environment. The flood brought fertility, but it also brought confusion. Human systems had to follow behind the water and make the land legible again. This practical need may have encouraged strong traditions of geometry and surveying. The idea is fascinating. Mathematics was not only an abstract pursuit. It could begin with muddy fields, disputed edges, and the urgent need to know where one person's land ended. Granaries stored the wealth that kept the state alive. Grain was the foundation of Egyptian power. It fed workers, supported officials, supplied temples, and helped the country survive lean periods. Granaries, therefore, were not simple storage buildings. They were centers of wealth. A full granary meant security, payment, and political strength. Empty storage could mean crisis. Officials monitored supplies carefully because grain could be collected as tax and redistributed as rations. The state's ability to organize labor depended on having food ready when workers needed it. Granaries also gave rulers control over time. Harvest came seasonally, but stored grain could be used months later. This turned a temporary abundance into lasting authority. The physical image is striking. Behind royal commands and temple rituals stood rooms filled with measured grain. Each basket or sack represented work from fields across Egypt. Power was not only held in crowns, statues, or armies. It was held in stored food, protected from pests, counted by scribes, and guarded for future need. Cattle were counted because livestock meant power and survival. A herd was not just a group of animals. It was wealth that breathed, moved, and multiplied. Cattle provided meat, milk, hides, labor, status, and offerings. Because of that value, officials recorded them with great care. Counts of livestock helped the state understand what people owned and what could be taxed. For a household, losing animals could mean losing security. For a temple or a state, a large herd showed prosperity and influence. Cattle also had a sacred dimension. Bulls could be associated with strength, fertility, and royal power. Some were treated with extraordinary reverence when linked to particular cults. This mixture of economy and religion made livestock deeply important. A cow in a field was practical food security. A bull in a procession could become a living symbol. The same animal could belong to farming, taxation, worship, and prestige. Counting cattle was really counting the stored strength of Egypt itself. Geese, ducks, and pigeons were raised for food. Not every source of meat required a large herd or a wealthy estate. Birds could be kept near homes, fields, and water, making them a useful part of household food supply. Geese and ducks appear often in Egyptian art, sometimes being carried, fattened, hunted, or prepared for meals. Pigeons could also be raised in specially designed structures, providing a steady source of meat in some periods and places. These birds mattered because they turned scraps, grain, and wetland access into nourishment. They were easier to manage than cattle and could support both ordinary meals and special occasions. Their feathers, eggs, and bodies all had uses. Scenes of bird catching can look graceful in tomb paintings, but the real activity required patience and speed. People knew where birds gathered, how they moved, and when they could be taken. Through these creatures, the air, marsh, and household yard became part of Egypt's food system. Ancient Egyptians kept monkeys and dogs as household companions. Some animals lived close to humans not only because they were useful, but because they were companions. Dogs served as hunters, guards, and loyal presences around the home. Monkeys were more exotic and likely belonged mainly to wealthier households or elite settings. Their lively behavior must have made them fascinating to watch. Keeping such animals tells us that Egyptian life included affection, amusement, and a desire for closeness with other living beings. Art sometimes shows pets near chairs, under tables, or beside their owners in scenes that feel domestic rather than formal. Yet companionship in Egypt was never separated completely from status or symbolism. An unusual animal could display access to trade and privilege. A familiar dog could show loyalty and household security. These relationships make the ancient world feel less distant. People did not only build monuments and obey officials, they also lived with creatures that followed them, entertained them, and shared their rooms. Dogs had names that show affection across the centuries. One of the most touching details from ancient Egypt is that some dogs' names have survived. They could be called names meaning things like brave one, reliable one, or even descriptions linked to color or character. These names were not merely labels for working animals. They suggest recognition, attachment, and personality. A named dog becomes an individual in the record, not just a type of creature. Dogs helped with hunting, guarding, and companionship, but the act of naming shows something more intimate. It means someone looked at an animal and saw a distinct presence. Tomb images sometimes place dogs close to their owners, which may express loyalty that was meant to continue beyond death. Across thousands of years, that bond still feels easy to understand. A person calling to a dog in an Egyptian courtyard was taking part in a relationship that remains familiar today. The language changed, but the affection did not. Cat burials reveal devotion that reached beyond ordinary pet keeping. Cats held a special place in Egyptian life, and some were buried with care that went far beyond simple disposal. In certain periods, cat mummies were created in large numbers as religious offerings, especially in connection with feline goddesses. Some individual cats were also treated with personal affection. This double meaning is important. A cat could be a beloved animal in a home, and it could also be part of a sacred system. The careful wrapping of feline bodies shows that Egyptians saw animal life as connected to divine presence. To prepare a cat for burial was to treat the animal as meaningful after death, not merely useful during life. The practice also reveals the scale of religious devotion. Pilgrims could offer mummified animals as acts of faith, hoping to communicate with a god through a living form associated with that deity. In these burials, affection, worship, and ritual economy all meet. Crocodiles inspired fear, worship, and careful respect along the Nile. The Nile gave life, but it also held danger. Crocodiles could wait near water where people washed, fished, traveled, or gathered reeds. Their power was sudden and terrifying. Egyptians responded to that danger not only with caution, but with religion. The crocodile god Sobek embodied strength, fertility, and the fierce force of the river. In some places, crocodiles were honored, kept in sacred precincts, or mummified after death. This may seem strange until you understand the logic. A dangerous animal was not ignored. It was recognized as powerful. Worship could be a way of seeking protection from the very force that caused fear. Crocodiles therefore occupied a complex place in Egyptian thought. They were threats to the body and symbols of divine energy. They belonged to both the mudbank and the temple. A person standing beside the river had to respect what might be hidden just below the surface. Hippos were dangerous animals that could threaten boats and crops. The hippopotamus may look slow from a distance, but Egyptians knew it as a powerful and dangerous creature. It could move with surprising force, overturn boats, injure people, and trample fields near the water. For farmers, this meant real damage to crops. For boaters, it meant a threat rising from the river with enormous weight behind it. Elite hunting scenes sometimes show kings or nobles attacking hippos, and those images carry more than sporting pride. They can symbolize the defeat of chaos and the protection of order. The animal's strength made it a fitting enemy in royal imagery. Yet the hippopotamus was not only negative. Female hippo forms also influenced protective deities connected with childbirth. This contrast is very Egyptian. The same animal could be feared in one setting and protective in another. Its body held danger, fertility, river power, and symbolic force, depending on how people encountered it. Scarab beetles became symbols of renewal and cosmic order. A small beetle rolling a ball across the ground became one of Egypt's most powerful symbols. Egyptians saw a resemblance between this movement and the sun's daily journey across the sky. The scarab became linked with Khepri, a form of the morning sun associated with coming into being. This turned an ordinary insect into a sign of creation and renewal. Scarab amulets were worn by the living and placed with the dead. Some were carved with names, prayers, or protective formulas. Hard scarabs could be placed in burials to help the deceased during judgment. What makes the symbol so remarkable is its scale. A creature found in the dust could express cosmic truth. Egyptians were gifted at seeing meaning in the natural world, and the scarab is a perfect example. Its small labor seemed to echo the movement of the heavens. In that connection, daily observation became theology. Priests cared for sacred animals as living forms of divinity. In certain temples, animals linked with gods were treated with special reverence. A bull, crocodile, ibis, cat, or other creature could be understood as a living manifestation connected to divine power. These animals required feeding, housing, protection, and ritual attention. Their lives were not ordinary animal lives. They belonged to a sacred institution. When they died, some were mummified and buried with ceremony. This practice reveals how flexible Egyptian religion could be. Divinity was not confined to a distant heaven or an abstract idea. It could be present in a breathing body, watched over by priests and approached by worshippers. Caring for such animals required resources and organization. Food had to be supplied, attendants had to be trained, and rituals had to be performed correctly. The temple became a place where human service met animal presence. Through that meeting, the divine world felt close enough to feed. Temples functioned as religious centers, workshops, and economic powers. A temple was not only a place of prayer. It was an institution with land, workers, storage rooms, workshops, livestock, and administrative records. People made offerings there, but people also baked, brewed, counted goods, repaired objects, managed estates, and supported large staffs. Temples could own fields and receive wealth from kings or private donors. Their influence reached far beyond ritual. They shaped local economies and provided employment for many kinds of workers. Priests served the god, but scribes, cleaners, bakers, craftsmen, farmers, and guards also kept the institution alive. This makes the temple one of the most important engines of Egyptian society. It joined religion with production and authority. The god's house had to be supplied like a great household. Its daily needs drew in grain, cloth, animals, oil, and labor. When we imagine a temple only as a sacred building, we miss its true power. It was faith organized into a living system. Gods were fed daily through carefully ordered temple rituals. Egyptians treated the divine image inside a temple as a living presence that required care. Each day, priests entered the sacred space after purification and performed a sequence of actions. The shrine was opened. The god's statue could be washed, dressed, anointed, and presented with food. These offerings were not thought of as feeding stone or metal in a simple sense. They nourished the divine presence that inhabited the image. Afterward, the food could return to human use through temple redistribution. The ritual had to be performed correctly because it helped maintain order between the human and divine worlds. This daily service was hidden from most people, since inner temple areas were restricted. That secrecy added to the power of the practice. At the heart of the building, beyond public view, trained hands renewed the relationship between Egypt and its gods. The survival of the cosmos was supported through repeated care. Festivals allowed ordinary people to meet divine images outdoors. Most Egyptians could not enter the deepest rooms of a temple, but festivals changed the relationship between people and the gods. On special days, a divine image could be carried outside in a sacred boat-shaped shrine. Crowds gathered as the procession moved through streets, courtyards, or routes between temples. For ordinary people, this was a rare chance to come close to a god's presence. The atmosphere could include music, food, celebration, prayer, and expectation. Festivals also strengthened community identity. They turned religion into a shared public experience rather than something hidden behind temple walls. People might ask for blessings, witness rituals, or simply feel that the divine world had entered their own space. These events gave movement to belief. A god who usually remained enclosed could travel among the people. For a short time, the boundary between sacred building and everyday life became wonderfully thin. Oracles could answer questions through the movements of sacred statues. When Egyptians faced uncertainty, they sometimes sought divine judgment through oracles. A god statue, carried by priests, could be asked a question. The movement of the statue might indicate approval, rejection, or a chosen answer. To modern listeners, this may sound unusual, but within Egyptian belief, it gave the god an active voice in human affairs. Oracles could be consulted about disputes, appointments, crimes, property, or personal decisions. Their answers carried authority because they appeared to come from a divine source. The process also depended on ritual setting, trained personnel, and public trust. People believed that the god could guide the movement and reveal truth. This made religion part of decision-making in very practical ways. A question that might divide a community could be placed before a sacred presence. The response could settle anxiety or confirm a course of action. Through oracles, the divine world entered daily problem-solving. Household shrines brought religion into private family spaces. Religion did not live only inside great temples. It also entered the home. Families could keep small shrines, images, offering places, or protective objects within domestic spaces. These household practices addressed immediate concerns, such as health, fertility, childbirth, safety, and the memory of relatives. The gods of the home were often close to ordinary fear and hope. A family did not need a huge stone sanctuary to seek protection. A small image or offering space could make the sacred feel present in a room where children slept and meals were prepared. This domestic religion is important because it shows a more personal side of Egyptian belief. Official temple ritual maintained cosmic order, but household devotion cared for the fragile details of life. A mother might pray for protection. A family might honor the dead. A worker might keep a charm nearby. In these intimate acts, religion became part of the furniture of daily existence. Bes protected mothers and children with a fierce little form. Bes looked unlike many other Egyptian gods. He was often shown as a short, powerful figure with a striking face, a protruding tongue, and a lively presence. Rather than appearing distant or majestic, he felt immediate and forceful. That made him especially important in the home. He was called upon to protect mothers, babies, and sleeping children from harm. His fierce expression was not meant to frighten the family. It was meant to frighten danger away. Images of Bes appeared on household objects, beds, mirrors, amulets, and birth-related items. He could also be associated with music, dance, and joy, which gave his protection warmth as well as strength. This makes him one of the most relatable divine figures in Egyptian life. He stood guard where people were most vulnerable. In the dangerous moments around birth and infancy, his small body carried a huge promise. The household was not defenseless. Taweret guarded childbirth with the body of a hippopotamus. Childbirth in the ancient world was dangerous, and Egyptians answered that danger with practical care and divine protection. Taweret was one of the most beloved protective figures for this moment. She had the body of a pregnant hippopotamus, the limbs of a lion, and the tail of a crocodile. Her form combined animals known for power, especially the fierce protection of their young. To a modern viewer, she may look unusual. To an Egyptian family, she looked strong enough to stand between mother and danger. Her image appeared on amulets, household objects, and tools associated with birth. Women could turn to her during pregnancy, labor, and early motherhood. This shows how religion addressed the body's most urgent risks. The divine protector was not delicate. She was formidable. Taweret made maternal fear visible and answered it with force. In her shape, the frightening power of wild animals became a shield for new life. Egyptians feared chaos and worked to preserve cosmic balance. At the center of Egyptian thought was the idea that order had to be maintained. This principle was called Ma'at. It meant truth, balance, justice, right behavior, and the proper arrangement of the world. Its opposite was disorder, which threatened society, nature, and the relationship between humans and gods. Kings claimed to uphold Ma'at through rule, ritual, law, and victory over enemies. Ordinary people also participated through honest conduct, respect for obligations, and proper worship. This belief gave daily life a larger meaning. Paying what was owed, speaking truthfully, honoring the dead, and keeping rituals could all support the structure of existence. Chaos was not an abstract fear. It could appear as famine, conflict, illness, invasion, or moral failure. Egyptians imagined civilization as something carefully defended, rather than automatically secure. To live well was to help keep the world from slipping out of alignment. Order was a shared responsibility. The heart was weighed because character mattered after death. In one of Egypt's most famous afterlife scenes, the heart of the deceased was weighed against the feather of Ma'at. The heart mattered because it was thought to hold memory, intention, and moral truth. A person could not simply hide behind wealth or status. In the judgment beyond death, their inner life had weight. If the heart balanced with the feather, the person could move toward a blessed existence. If it failed, the result was terrifying. This image is powerful because it turns ethics into something visible. Every action during life becomes part of what the heart carries. The scene also shows that the afterlife was not automatic. It required moral fitness and ritual preparation. Spells might help, but character still mattered in the story Egyptians told about judgment. The weighing of the heart gave life a moral seriousness. What a person did in secret could become the most important evidence of all. Tomb goods were chosen for comfort in the next life. Objects placed in burials were not random treasures. They were selected to support the deceased in the world beyond death. Food, drink, clothing, tools, furniture, cosmetics, games, and personal items could all appear depending on wealth and period. The idea was deeply human. People imagined the next life with needs that resembled this one, so they prepared the dead with familiar comforts. A worker might receive simple goods. A ruler could receive riches on a breathtaking scale. Yet the logic behind both was connected. The dead should not be abandoned. They should be supplied. Tomb goods also preserved identity. A person's profession, tastes, status, and relationships could be reflected in what accompanied them. This makes burial archaeology emotionally powerful. A comb, a bow, or a pair of sandals can feel more intimate than gold. Such objects say that someone expected the person to continue and wanted them to be ready. False doors let spirits receive offerings from the living. A false door was not meant for ordinary walking. It was a carved or painted doorway placed in a tomb so the spirit of the deceased could pass between worlds. Offerings could be set before it, and inscriptions often named the person who was to receive them. The idea is fascinating because it turns architecture into a meeting point. The living stood on one side with food, words, and memory. The dead could approach from the other side through a symbolic threshold. The door did not need to open physically. Its purpose was ritual. It made contact possible. This shows how seriously Egyptians treated the relationship between the living family and the deceased. A tomb was not simply a sealed storage place. It was a maintained connection. Through offerings and names, a person remained part of the social world. The false door gave that invisible relationship a visible address. Not everyone could afford mummification in the grandest style. The most elaborate preservation methods required specialists, materials, time, and wealth. Royal and elite bodies might receive costly treatment, fine wrappings, decorated coffins, amulets, and carefully prepared tombs. Many ordinary people had far simpler burials. This difference matters because popular images often make Egyptian death customs seem universally lavish. They were not. Social rent shaped what could be done for the body after death. Some families may have used modest forms of drying, wrapping, or burial in the desert environment. Others relied on simpler graves with a few meaningful objects. The hope for continued existence was widespread, but the resources available for expressing that hope varied greatly. This gives Egyptian funerary culture a more realistic human texture. Behind every famous mummy were countless people whose families did what they could. Eternity was imagined by all kinds of Egyptians, but it was prepared according to means, access, and circumstance. Simple burials could still carry hope for the afterlife. A burial did not need golden equipment to hold deep meaning. Even a modest grave could include gestures of care. A body might be placed carefully. A small pot, bead, tool, or food offering might accompany the dead. The grave itself could be positioned with thought. These choices show that hope was not limited to the wealthy. Families with little could still act with devotion. In some cases, the natural dryness of the desert helped preserve bodies without elaborate treatment, which may have influenced early ideas about survival after death. What matters most is the intention. The dead were not simply discarded. They were placed, supplied, and remembered. Simple burials can be especially moving because they strip the practice down to its emotional core. Someone had died. Someone living cared enough to prepare them. Across thousands of years, that care still speaks. It tells us that the desire for continuity belongs to ordinary people as much as kings. Grave robbers threatened tombs despite curses, guards, and hidden chambers. Tombs were built to protect the dead, but they also attracted danger. Valuable goods placed inside could tempt thieves, especially during times of instability. Builders tried to hide entrances, block passages, and create barriers. Texts could warn intruders of divine punishment. Guards and officials might be assigned to protect burial grounds. Yet robbery still happened often. The temptation was simply too great. Gold, jewelry, fine materials, and even reusable coffins could be taken. Ancient records describe investigations into tomb theft, which proves that Egyptians themselves struggled with the problem. This gives funerary culture a tense reality. A tomb was meant to last forever, but it entered a world of human greed and economic pressure. Even the most sacred spaces were vulnerable. The dead depended on the living to protect them, and the living did not always succeed. Every sealed chamber carried not only hope, but risk. Doctors used practical remedies alongside prayers and protective spells. Egyptian medicine did not separate the body from the sacred in the way modern science often does. A healer might treat a wound with bandages, apply a substance with real physical benefit, and also speak words meant to drive away harmful forces. To us, those approaches can seem contradictory. To Egyptians, they belonged together. Illness could have visible causes, but it might also involve unseen danger. Medical papyri show careful attention to symptoms, injuries, and treatment methods. They also include magical formulas. This combination should not make us dismiss Egyptian medicine. It shows a society using every tool it believed could help. Some remedies were ineffective. Others were remarkably sensible. The important point is that healing was an active practice grounded in observation, tradition, and belief. The patient was not treated as a machine. They were a vulnerable person in a world where the physical and invisible were intertwined. Medical papyri described injuries with surprisingly careful observation. Some Egyptian medical texts read almost like early clinical notes. They describe injuries, examine symptoms, offer diagnoses, and sometimes give a prognosis. A case might be judged treatable, uncertain, or beyond help. This structured approach is impressive because it shows disciplined observation. The healer looked at the body, considered what could be seen or felt, and decided what action might follow. Wounds, fractures, dislocations, swellings, and head injuries were not all treated as mysterious events. Many were understood through direct physical signs. The language could be practical and clear. This reveals a side of Egyptian knowledge that is easy to overlook. The same culture that filled tombs with spells also studied trauma with careful attention. Experience taught healers which injuries improved and which were dangerous. In those papyri, we can see minds trying to classify suffering. It is one of the closest ancient medicine comes to sounding recognizably clinical. Dentists faced tooth problems caused by gritty bread. Bread kept people alive, but it could also wear down their teeth. Grain was often ground on stone surfaces, and tiny mineral particles could end up in the flour. Over years of chewing, that grit acted like sandpaper. Teeth became worn, sensitive, infected, or damaged. Dental pain must have been common and sometimes severe. Wealth did not provide complete protection because even elite diets could include bread made through similar processes. Evidence from mummies and skeletons shows heavy wear in many mouths. This detail changes how we imagine daily eating. A simple meal could carry a hidden cost. The same food that fed the body slowly injured it. Egyptian healers had some remedies for dental problems, but they could not reverse a lifetime of abrasion. Toothache, abscess, and loss would have affected speech, sleep, appetite, and mood. Behind the calm faces in paintings were real bodies dealing with very ordinary pain. Eye disease was common because dust and sunlight were relentless. The Egyptian environment could be hard on the eyes. Bright light, desert dust, wind-blown sand, insects, and close living conditions all created problems. Irritation and infection were likely frequent. This helps explain why eye care appears so often in medical and cosmetic traditions. The eye was both physically vulnerable and symbolically important. Losing vision or suffering constant pain could change a person's ability to work and move safely. Healers used washes, ointments, and formulas aimed at relief or protection. Some cosmetic practices may also have helped reduce glare or discourage insects. The concern was practical because the threat was daily. A person did not need a battlefield injury to suffer. The landscape itself could attack slowly through light and dust. This makes Egyptian attention to the eyes feel deeply sensible. The famous painted gaze was not only beautiful, it belonged to a world where seeing clearly was something that had to be defended. Midwives helped mothers through birth with skill and ritual. Birth was one of the most dangerous moments in ancient Egyptian family life. Midwives brought experience that could make the difference between terror and support. They helped with positioning, encouragement, practical care, and the management of the newborn. Birth bricks may have supported the mother in a squatting posture during labor. Protective objects and spoken formulas could also be used because the danger felt both physical and spiritual. This combination of skill and ritual gave families a way to face uncertainty. Women giving birth were not alone in a purely medical event. They were surrounded by knowledge, touch, prayer, and protective tradition. The arrival of a child mattered not only emotionally, but socially and economically. A healthy baby meant continuity for the household. A safe mother meant the family remained whole. Midwives stood at the threshold where risk became life. Their work rarely appears in grand history, but it was essential to survival. Calendars tracked lucky and unlucky days for important choices. Egyptians did not treat every day as equal. Some calendars marked days as favorable or dangerous, often based on mythological events or religious associations. A person might consider such guidance before beginning an activity, making a decision, or facing a risky moment. This does not mean life stopped whenever a day was unlucky. It means time itself had texture. Certain dates felt safer, while others carried warning. The idea gave people a way to organize uncertainty. If the world was full of hidden forces, then knowing the character of a day could help a person act wisely. These calendars also show how myth entered ordinary planning. Stories of gods were not confined to temple walls. They influenced how people thought about timing, danger, and opportunity. Modern people still have lucky numbers, favorite dates, and uneasy feelings about certain days. The Egyptian version was more formal, but the impulse feels familiar. Ancient Egyptian life mixed hard work with astonishing imagination. Daily existence could be demanding. Fields needed labor. Food had to be prepared. Animals required care. Officials demanded taxes. Illness, heat, and uncertainty were constant companions. Yet this practical world produced one of history's richest imaginative cultures. Egyptians saw meaning in animals, plants, dreams, colors, names, stars, bodies, rivers, and stones. They built systems of belief that connected household routines to cosmic order. A worker could shape a tomb wall by day and return to a home protected by small divine figures at night. A farmer could struggle with crops while living inside a calendar filled with sacred time. A mother could face childbirth with both human help and supernatural guardians. This is what makes their civilization so compelling. It was not only monumental, it was intimate. It joined mud brick, sweat, laughter, fear, beauty, and eternity into one continuous world. To study everyday Egypt is to discover how extraordinary ordinary life can become. And so, we come to the end of our journey through life as an ancient Egyptian. Tonight, we stepped beyond the great monuments and looked for the people who lived in their shadow. We followed the river as it shaped the year. We entered homes made from mud brick, where bread was baked, beer was poured, and families rested beneath the warm night air. We saw workers shaping stone with patient hands. We saw scribes preserving voices that still sound human after thousands of years. We wandered through markets, temples, workshops, and burial places, where daily needs and sacred hopes were never far apart. We met animals that guarded homes, inspired gods, and carried meaning through ordinary life. We learned how Egyptians cared for the body, protected the family, honored the dead, and imagined a world where memory could survive beyond the grave. What remains is not only a civilization of pyramids and pharaohs. It is a world of footsteps in dust, lamps in small rooms, grain in storage jars, and names carefully written so they would not be forgotten. If you enjoyed this gentle journey, you are warmly invited to like, subscribe, or leave a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. And if you happen to still be awake, there is another video waiting on the screen, ready to carry you into a new corner of history. But for now, there is nothing more you need to do. Let your shoulders soften. Let your breathing slow. Allow the world of the Nile to drift away, like a boat moving farther down the dark water. The houses grow still. The lamps burn low. And the ancient river keeps flowing, steady and calm, beneath a sky full of stars. Sleep well and good night.